Good evening, welcome back to the Bird Room. Another episode for you today. Today is going to be mainly talking about show cages and show cage training. Now, I know Oliver at OCAVs has done one on training, but I'm going to give you my way of doing it. It's slightly different. Rather than just putting a bird in a cage, I train it from around 6 weeks, so around the time they're finishing the molt on the cages. So firstly we'll talk about the show cages. I'm not going to go into too much detail because Oliver's already done this. We've got obviously different types. We've got the English pattern and the Scottish pattern. This is the Scottish pattern. These are my training cages, by the way. And this is the English pattern, slightly bigger. These are both number 3s. And obviously we've got number 2s for your goldfinches. Siskins red poles are smaller British finches. The number 3s are for obviously the bigger ones, green finches, the buntings, bullfinches, that type of bird. Now in the UK, or England, Wales and Scotland anyway, we can use English and Scottish pattern, but more generally we tend to use the Scottish pattern because some believe it shows the bird off better. I have been known to use number 3s in the English pattern for the green finches because they're bigger birds and it gives them a bit more room to turn around and show themselves off. But majority of my cages are the Scottish pattern because that's ones that people are making nowadays. In Ireland, for instance, they only use the English pattern, which is the bigger one. Exactly the same procedure, same floor dressing as what we do. In England we use the green drinkers. Now the original colour for your show cages used to be Brolac Georgian green. I always remember my dad, when he had them years and years ago, he's trying to mix the old paint himself to get the actual paint colour instead of being, it was really tight and didn't want to go and pay money for the actual proper Brolac Georgian green. There is 2 varied different tones nowadays, but at the end of the day we're looking, when we're showing birds, we're actually looking at the bird even though the cage is judged. Just bear that in mind, which I'll come on to that later on. But like I said, yes, we use the green ones. In Ireland, however, they use the black drinkers, the same D cups but black. Just turn that air condition off, it's getting a bit cold in front of it. So, as far as training, like I said, I like to get them done quite early on. Get them used to the show cage, and what I do with that is, I don't know if you can see behind me, I've got one actually on the cage front, and how I do that is simple. These cages were given to me years ago, and I've kept them, and basically all I've done with them is screw some hooks on there and an eyelet. These type of stuff, what they used to use for old net curtains, in the end the hooks, I don't know if you can see them there, 2 there and 1 there. The one there is basically to stop the door falling down if the birds get in there, and these just stuck on the cage front. Rather quite simply, if I wanted to do it on this one, it's so simple to do, just stuck it on and the door sits like that. It is really as simple as that. There is things around that actually go on your front that you can hold them on, but this works perfectly, and as you can see, they're on. That's some young green finches there. Just getting used to the show cages. Now on the floor, I will just put a general mix. In these, for instance, I've got a green finch mix. I would usually fill the drinker up to get them used to drinking the water through there. But to entice them a little bit more, what I tend to do is give them a little bit of apple in the bars and one on the floor. Try and encourage them in. So if you look when the birds bath, when they come to the bath on the front straight away, they're a bit cautious and they're a bit wary about it. And so by enticing them in with a bit of goodies, if you like, on the bottom of the cage, and get them used to being in and out that show cage as often as possible. Now, if I put this on here, I would leave it overnight. It's not going to be any problems. So I'm going to hook this onto the front in the top cage and lead them to it, like I said, I won't be taking this off tonight. It's not going to be causing any problems. I know the door can't shut. I know it's hooked on perfectly fine. So that is obviously how I entice me into the cage in the first instance. And once they get used to that, it becomes less of a strange atmosphere for them when you put them in a show cage to try and train them on further. So what I'm doing, obviously when my wife cleans the birds, I'm not lazy about cleaning them out, but obviously she does a better job. And well, she does a better job at the cleaning. I'd actually do the actual proper cleaning. So when she's doing that, I'll actually catch one or two and put them in show cages just to let them have 10 minutes run out. So that's how I would start them off, 10 minutes at a time, and mounting it up to an hour and a half. Remember, when you're showing a bird in a normal show, whether it be a 2-day or a 1-day show, they're in that show cage for a long time. So the more time that they get in it, the better it is for the birds. They get used to it and it's second nature to them. And what you want is a bird to show themselves better rather than pulling. And what I mean by pulling, when you put a bird in a show cage, it tightens itself up and it goes long and it's a bit tense. You want to be relaxed in a show cage and show yourself off. Majority of the birds that we show is done on shape and size, especially with the fives. Green finches, you want the nice shape and size to them. You can't really see that if the birds are pulling, so that's why I like to get them used to the show cage as much as possible. But yes, that's how I would start them off, and moving on to putting them in show cages. So what I'll do now is show you a couple in the show cage, a couple of current year bred green finches, and we'll take it from there. Later on I think we might move on to some fives, depending. I did let them have a bath early. If they dried out enough, then I'll put them in some show cages, give a bit of a training time. So here we've put 4 in show cages, all current year bred birds. We've got 3 cock birds and 1 hen. Now this is a makeshift judging stand, vital in my opinion. Now the reason I've got this, I've got it at eye level in front of the light, so basically when I actually want to go through them, I'm looking at them in full potential. It's not like when you're looking at fives where you've got to look down at them. I actually want to look up at first and actually see from underneath. I will do a spin round on them shortly and let you have a closer look at them. But especially these 4, I mean these 4 I've just picked out, and there's nothing wrong with them whatsoever. Yeah, these have never been in a show cages as yet, so 10 minutes, like I said, at a time, it'll do them the world of good. This one's catching my eye already. So now what I will do with the green finches, like I said, just leave them in there for a little while, let them settle down, and they'll get more and more used to being in that show cage. what you run through is go from perch to perch, working the perch, and there is little tricks which I'm going to show you now. If a bird won't settle down, what I've done in the past and got them to be dead steady. So I've got the young greenfinch cock, the one that I said I like. So basically, you see, it's not as steady as what I'm going to like it as yet. But in the past, what I've done with them is when I'm feeding, I'll walk around with it. Bear this in mind, if you've never been to a show you won't know this, but when you put your birds in a show, first thing to do, you fill your water pots up. Don't allow the stewards to do it. I've had instances where, I mean, it's full now, full of water for the training procedure, because I want them to know that water's there. There's been times when I've been to shows and they've been filled up by stewards. First thing that happens is the bird will go and bath. So when I bench my birds, take them to the show that is, I literally just put it up to there. Just a little bit in there, just so they know that the water's there. And this has cost me Best British at one of the shows, because, and my bird was definitely the best, or it was mine and Mark's bird, was definitely the best bird in the show that day. And when it came to being judged, the judge said you can't judge it because he's got a wet head. Instead of leaving it to dry off for 20 minutes and he could have had another look at it, he decided not good enough, it's wet. Now any other judge would have just left that if he knew what greenfinch are like, especially greenfinch is probably the worst one for it. If it wasn't me doing it, put it this way, I would have put it to a side and come back to it later on. Because he did come back to later on when the judging had finished and open to public. He said that's definitely the best bird in here, but it was wet. It says everything for you really. So bear that in mind. Do your waters yourself. So before they judge them, obviously you've got a steward walking up and down, bringing the birds and putting them on the staging. So constantly picking it up, putting it down. Same with the judges. When they are judging a bird, they pick it up, moving it around. So the last thing you want is your bird not to be used to being carried around. So that's one tip for you. If you've got a bird, if you're doing stuff that you can do with one hand, just carry it, go into your cages, do this, do that, and keep looking at your bird, make sure it's alright, not much of a fright, and then just have a look at it. I mean, it's not took any problems from me doing this, and I've never done it before to this bird. Didn't train any last year with there being no shows, and this little bit of tip that I'm going to give you will help, just walking around with it, getting it used to being around you. Now the second one is, this is my go-to every time that I've got a bird that won't settle. Greenfinches are not the problem. Your linnets, yellowhammers, brambos, they're more scattier in a cage. So what I do, when I'm in my shed and I need to steady a bird down, what I'll do with it, I'll simply put it where I'm working and leave it there, doing the waters, doing the seed dishes, doing all this while I'm in the shed. Whether it takes me an hour or 20 minutes, that bird gets used to being around you then. So if I'm working away at the sink, doing this or moving stuff around, it gets used to the noise and the commotion that we're causing. Now when we were kids, I'm one of 10. So noise and commotion in my house when we were growing up for the birds weren't an issue. And trying to steady them up around all those kids, never had a problem for my dad. So, and it's one thing I took forward is they need to get used to movement, they need to get used to sound, they need to get used to this. But it is noise and movement of walking around. That's the biggest tip I can tell you. Just keep walking up and down with it, lifting it up, having a look, putting it back down. And if you're active in a workplace, I've known people take them to work in the cars to try and steady the birds up, make them a bit more tame. You can work like that. But as for shorebirds, they're not pet birds. They're not ones you're going to put on your finger and talk to. They're birds for breeding and showing totally different type of pets. So we don't want to hold them on his fingers. We want them to work the perches. We don't want them smashing up against the bars. We want them to work the perches across. And I'm just getting this bird used to it. It's not me picking up and down. This is part of the training procedure I give them. And just keep moving it across, because mark my words, this bird will be on the show bench this year, and I think he's going to do really well. He's looking forward. He's doing what he should be doing. So all these little bits are going to help him. So while ever I'm recording for the rest of this, I'm just going to leave him there. And as I'm moving around, he's going to be getting used to what I'm doing. Now, so far as training British softbills, I've had British softbills, I've shown British softbills and done good with them. But I never used to put them in a show cage, because especially like your thrushes and your dunnocks, which I've had before and bred off, I always found that they seem to steady up a lot better without the training. And when I sketch them apart the flights, or when I had the dunnocks in cages this size, with the naturalness that we put in there, the moss and the branches and stuff, I think they steady up a lot easier because they're in a more of a natural environment than just a cage. So far as training them, from my experience, I never did. I literally just caught them up, put them in the cage and let them settle. And a bloke called Bill Painter once judged my dunnocks. I got best, when I was novice, best novice softbill or whatever, and it did, I think it went on to win best British. Can't really remember, it quite a while ago. And he said to me, it's really a steady bird. And it's just because obviously I'm walking past the cages every day, it sees me every day. It's used to a bit of noise when the radio's on or the kids are playing, or anything that's going off always helps the birds. And one thing that I will say is noise in your bird shed this time of year is a good thing. Not noise from your bird singing, but noise from outside. Don't know what's going on with them over there. So it's not a bad thing. Whereas obviously when it comes towards bonfire night, we don't want the noise. That's the show season. We don't want birds dropping flights. He's steadied up. He's sat there nice and quiet now. Getting used to being in the show cage. That is the whole idea. So mules and hybrids, as a general rule, mules and hybrids in themselves are quite steady. Especially your mules, because obviously they come from a canary background. So canaries, to train canaries, I don't train my Norwich. I do train the Fives, and I'll explain a little bit on that shortly. But because mules and hybrids, like I said, firstly mules, they come from a canary background, they don't ever seem to be as unsteady in a cage than what an hybrid would anyway. Because hybrid, let's talk one hybrid. I've got a linnet crossbill down there. Never been in a show cage. He's going to get some intensive training. I think he's 3 or 4 year old, so it's not going to bother him. And I'm going to show him as I'm doing the videos from week to week, whenever it is. You'll probably see him in the show cage. He might be still there. He might be on the bit over there. But he's going to be getting some training, because the linnet itself is quite a flighty bird. So it needs more of a training than what a mule would. So that brings me on to, like I said, about Fives. Right, I'm not going to talk too much about Fives, because I've spoken to Matt at the Canary Room and asked him would he do a bit on training Fives, because obviously that's more his thing and the British are more mine. But I'm going to just literally just do 5 minutes of it and just tell you my experience of it, and have a look at a couple of the Fives and tell you my opinions on them so far. But we're not going to get a full picture of this just yet, because obviously they're not at that stage. So I'll take you over, show you a couple of the Fives, and tell you my opinions of the little bits I'm doing to to bring them up so I can present them at a show, and they do what I'm hoping they will do anyway. So this is 2 current year bred Fives, and I think they're shaping up to be brilliant birds. As you can obviously see, they're taking shape quite nicely. The one here, you can probably see a bit of string on the top. Now that's to get him stand tall like he is there. Look, he's quite inquisitive of what he's doing. So I'm quite happy with the look of them two. So that was just a quick look at a couple of Fives. Now, believe it or not, they actually look better than I thought they did. That was literally just 2 the young ones I just got out one cage or another cage, and just put them in a show cage, and they are shaping up really well. Don't get me wrong, I didn't just go in a cage and just grab one. I looked at one and thought that looks quite good, and same with the other one. But they're coming on quite well, so I'm really pleased with the progress of them. Now, what we used to use on the floor is tusks on the floor. Let me just grab the cage and I will show you. So on the floor, tusks, and I've got the cage where I've just took the drinker off, a top hat drinker. And in this side we put canary seed, mixed canary seed. I'm actually really pleased with them. Like I said, I don't tend to do much training with these. Don't hang the excuse me. I don't hang the cage on the front. However you can do, you can get these in a training cage version with hooks on, or simply just make the hooks yourself if you wanted to, and just put them on the cages like that. It's simple, but like I said, I do tend to find that you don't need to train Fives as much. But Matt will elaborate more on that in one of his episodes, because actually it's wrong cage, that's the other bird. He has actually said to me that he's going to do a showcase training on Fives, and he's got more experience in the Fives than what I have, even though I'm champion. But that is because obviously I've been showing British as champion, so I am still learning about the Fives. That's pretty much as simple as it gets with training your birds. When it comes to show time, however, you need to get your birds ready. That is a different thing. I'll just have a quick rundown, but I'll go in more detail in a future episode. Make sure your feet on your birds are clean and your rings, because that is vitally important. I always spray 2 days before a show with plume spray. We do sell it, it is on our website. We do sell that, and it helps the plumage out. You don't have to, you can just give it lukewarm water, plain water, bath on the front, it will all suffice, the same thing. The cage needs to be clean. Remember, when you're judging a bird, there's no point in having the best bird in there if your cage is dirty and a mess. Even though it is a bird show, not a cage show, your bird will get knocked back for it. No one likes to see a dirty cage. Obviously you've got your classifications, but like I said, I'll run into them at a later date, and where you put your labels on your cages. But I think that the most important thing is ask people. I mean, more times out of, well, 10 times out of, well, I wouldn't say even that, because I was going to say more often that people will help you, but when it comes to showing birds, believe me, there is some people out there that won't help you. I would say the best thing to do, go to a local CBS show, see for yourself, and someone will point in the direction of what to do, or just send me a message if there's any particular information you would like on them, and I will put them in a future episode. One thing I do want to mention, and it's a question by Don, and I was specifically saving this for this episode because it is important. So all you've got your birds ready for a show, and if you're still using lights at that stage, because I do, for one reason, if I'm going to a show and won't get back till 8 o'clock, in show season the natural light is already dark outside, so I don't want to come in or don't leave my birds in show cage overnight, so I like to bring them in, get them straight back into the cages or into the flights, let them have a drink and something to eat before the lights go out, so I actually leave my lights on, which are on a timer. Don's question was about a dimmer. Obviously, does he need a dimmer? Do I think it's vital? Yes and no. In your case, Don, no. Your birds are in like an area which gets natural sunlight, and at that point they're going to go to roost at the time that obviously the wilder birds will do, because the light's falling outside rather than what it is inside. If you're planning on being in your place where you are going to be disturbing birds and going outside turning the lights off, then yes, get a dimmer. The reason I've got a dimmer, I'll explain it a little easier. I'm coming home from a show, turn the lights on, scares the birds that's in here. That might be birds for another show. Let them feed and water. Click, the lights go out like that, the birds get startled, they're not on the perches, they'll fly into the cages and that type of stuff. It's going to mess the flights up, it's going to mess the tails up, could even kill the bird, it could have a night fright. So by putting a dimmer on, literally as you walk out the shed, on my dimmer I can switch it to half an hour, and it'll, increments of half an hour, it'll dim down till it's dark. At that point the bird will know it's time to start to go to roost. They'll pick the perch, most of them actually have the roosting perch that they'll go to, unless it's siskins, little perches on the front and shoot out the cages. But yes, dimmer, vitally important when it's showing, believe it or not. It stops so much stress in the birds from the lights being off and it's being dark, and it helps you out if you're going to a show and you're coming back late. So I hope that answers your question, Dom. If not, send me a message and I will elaborate a little bit more. So just before we leave, as promised, I'm just going to show you the cages I've built over in the corner. Stack of 4 cages. They're 1 metre long, so they are the cage fronts that we do sell. And these are what I'm going to be using for hybridising next year. And I've already put a couple of birds in there, but they're not going to be staying in there. They're just in there while I sort the others. I'm having another block over here I'm going to be making at some point, and another flight cage over this side. So I'll quickly show you that and just give you a couple of points on it. So these are the cages, and before I talk to you about them, just want to say thank you to Matthew Cooper, who sorted me out with these, the UPVC that I made these from. Done me a great deal on them, and if you do need anything, send me a message, I'll put you in touch with Matthew. Right, so like I said, these are about, well they're 1 metre, just over. 1 metre 2 centimetres, that's what they are exactly. These are the cage fronts that we sell, which are 50 centimetres. We've got the feeding flaps on there, which I will be putting the seed hoppers on there at some point, but not yet, because obviously that's when I've given the tidbits in there and the grit. In this one we have the pair of Northern Bullfinches, which I've moved from over there, while that's the area which I'm going to be doing, and some young fives in this one, some other bits in the bottom. So what I've done, I've put the thumb turns on them. They've got birds in now, so it's not easy for me to take them off. So basically, if I want to clean the cages out, thumb turns, these are solid bottoms. they're actually screwed in, and the cage front just pops off, similarly to what they do over there. It is really that simple. By just using the thumb turns, the cage's fronts will come off, and I can actually get access into the bottom, clean it all out, new easy bedding. Good thing about the UPVC, it's easy to clean and it looks nice and fresh. Like I said, they're going to be for the hybridizing. They are actually wider than standard, purely because I wanted wider cages in there for the hybrid, so they've got a bit more space in the back corner when I put the nest sites in there. Like I said, that's a block of 4. They're going to work perfectly for me. Sadly, that does bring us to the end of our episode today. I hope you have found something in this interesting on training your birds. I mean, there is so many different people's opinions on how they would train them. This is how I do it, and it works for me. I mean, me and Mark have won Best British I don't know how many times. That was at novice. We went on to win Best British as champion before COVID hit, and we also won Best Current Year Bred Hardbill at the Southeastern British Bird Mule and Hybrid Club against top names like Richard Wilson, Eddie Wells, Richard Lawson. So it's not like we didn't come in and have a bang and knocked us back. So obviously sometimes when you come from novice to champion you don't succeed as well, but we're on the right path anyway. But yes, thanks for watching. Need anything for your bird keeping needs? Cage fronts, the ones we've got there, drinkers, seed pots, all that type of stuff, head over to our website directbirdproducts.com. Send a message on Facebook at Direct Bird Products. We can try and put you in the right direction of anything that you do need. If you have liked this video, leave a thumbs up. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell and that will tell you next time we upload a video. For those who are new to our channel, it is on a Friday every 2 weeks and every Wednesday and midweek tips. Thanks for watching everybody. Enjoy your weekend, and if you have got birds that need training, time to start getting them trained ready for them shows. Take care and I'll see you in the next one.